Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Thursday, January the 30th, the last primetime show of the month of January. For some reason, January feels like it lasts longer and longer each year. Maybe that's because the Titans don't make the playoffs anymore and we have nothing to do but sit around and talk about the draft during the month of January. But that's fine because we have talked a great deal about quarterbacks. Quarterback is the position that most of you have spent the most time asking about. But given that the phrase, no matter what my level of protest to this phrase is, but given that a Titans executive, Chad Brinker, president of football operations, the person who has final say on the Titans roster, given that this person talked about not passing up on a generational talent with the Titans' number one overall pick, I feel at some point we have to have a show about Travis Hunter and his potential fit as the Titans' number one overall pick. It feels like Abdul Carter gets more love consistently from Titans fans than does Hunter. It feels like both quarterbacks have been talked about a great deal more than Hunter, when in reality, that's the only generational college football player I saw this year, because I have never seen a college football player like Travis Hunter in my lifetime. So we're going to take a look at his potential fit. We'll talk about what position he's best equipped to play in the NFL, and we'll get to a weekend bounce back at the end of the show. Before we get started, we will work our way through the process of sharing the show. In fact, you will work your way through the process of sharing this show: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. In the comment section, if you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you're on YouTube or Twitch, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell a friend to do the same while you're there. And as more of you trickle in, we will discuss at length together and look forward to talking about Travis Hunter and his potential fit here in Tennessee. Hill on Facebook says, isn't that something you're having a show on? Some that we need to, that we know we need. It's all about filling the roster.
Sorry, that comment gave me a.
I was just confused if I was reading it incorrectly because I was talking, or if it actually made no sense based on what I was reading, which of course is the first comment that I threw up on the board after seeing one of the first greetings that Bert received, which is "Bert, go choke on one," which made me laugh. So I figured that's how we would start the show. Yes, indeed. But despite Bert's pettiness, because the chat already has him under attack, we'll go ahead and get this thing started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. Buy Zen Sports, promo code ATOZTN. Get you in on all the action. Zen Sports is the place for you to wager on the big game. I'll tell you more about their big game boost later on in the show. And by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch, your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for more info today. And Bart Durham Injury Law. You deserve to be paid. Blair Durham and his team are there to guide you through it. Go online to bartdurham.com and get your free consultation today. Travis Hunter is not a name that comes up very often at this point in time among Titans fans. Most of you are quarterback thirsty, and I completely understand the need. What I don't agree with are comments like this. Amar says, draft a damn quarterback, don't overthink it. Overthinking it, I think, would result in you drafting a quarterback this year based on the quarterbacks that are available to you. I think there's a great deal of overthinking being done about the value that these quarterbacks actually bring to the table. Let me pose you, because this provides us an entry point into the Travis Hunter conversation. If you're the Tennessee Titans, if you're Mike Borgonzi and you're picking the 53 and you're making the draft picks, and yeah, Chad Brinker has final say, but everybody's in lockstep. You're Mike Borgonzi, the new Titans GM. and you know you need a quarterback, but you know you need a great many other things, and you've got a less than appealing quarterback class, even though both of these quarterbacks do bring something to the table of value. They do have qualities to them that you don't have in your current quarterback room, which right now only includes Will Levis. And you're looking around and saying, yeah, but. The yeah, but scenario is this. Unless you have Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, whichever one of them, at the very top of your draft board, you may have to consider this hypothetical. Cam Ward is the best quarterback prospect in the draft class. That feels like it's consensus at this point, at least externally. How teams feel about that, we may never know. But Cam Ward feels like the best quarterback in this draft. But if the best quarterback in this draft is prospect somewhere between 15 and 25, like overall prospects available, regardless of position. Now, you might say, well, I don't care about regardless of position. The Titans need a quarterback. It's the most important position. That should bump it up a few grade points. And I'd be inclined to agree with your logic that way. But if Cam Ward is the best quarterback in the class, and you have the best quarterback in the class graded somewhere between 15 and 25 overall as a prospect, you cannot, in good conscience, take that quarterback number one overall. If he's the 15th, at best, 15th best prospect in this draft class, and that may not be true, depending on how it's a hypothetical. We'll see how these teams have them graded out. Well, we won't see how these teams have them graded out, but we will find out on draft night how high these teams have these two quarterbacks graded out based on where they end up being drafted. If you have these quarterbacks graded out that low relative to the rest of the prospects on the board, then you can't take that quarterback number one overall because it's not worth it. That's just what it is. We will never see their draft board. It's only a guess. But based on the conversations that are being had right now, there is reason to suspect that these quarterbacks may not be the best prospects in their upcoming draft class at this point in time. Bork says, Buck, ask the Titans if you can see their big board. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. I could certainly ask. I haven't gotten to spend much time with Mike Borgonza yet. I assume that Combine will be the most quality time that I get with your new front office here in the not too distant future, less than a month from today. Combine will be underway, and we'll look forward to all our coverage from up there, radio show and primetime. Obviously, I'm going to be up there, so both of the shows are going to be up there, and we'll do a live install. We've got some really cool guest plans. I don't want to tease anything that we can't yet concretely deliver, but we have a really cool plan that I'm excited about. And if we can even pull off 1/5 of what I want to do at the Combine, I think it'll be a very, very good week for the audience, for you guys to hear from some people involved across the league with, one, how your roster got to this point, and two, how you're going to try and dig your roster out of it. So all that to say, what you have right now is a situation where it's a weaker quarterback class just relative to the last quarterback class that was drafted. It's not as bad as 2022, but it's not as good as 2024. That's just the facts. You have depth, probably the greatest amount of depth of players that can contribute this year for you at the defensive line spot. It's not a bad year to be needing offensive linemen, and you need offensive linemen yet again. You need defensive linemen yet again. You need wide receivers. You need secondary help. You need another safety to run alongside Amani Hooker. We've talked about this. You have needs all over the board. And once again, you cannot accomplish all of them in one offseason, but you must prioritize. You absolutely must prioritize. And that is something that you have to keep in mind. So Travis Hunter is a part that is a hypothetical in this world that is worth entertaining. I think that the Supreme Nick says Callahan said they already know what they're going to do with the number one pick. Well, that's not true at all. That's factually inaccurate. In fact, Callahan has said he's just started to watch these guys. So, of course, they don't know what they're going to do with the number 1 overall pick. Nobody has said anything definitively about that. That is not accurate information. Tighten Up Dread says, we all know the inside office listens to the media. So why is everyone in the media trying to control the narrative of this draft? Nobody's trying to control shit. People are just telling you what their opinions are on this current draft class out in the media. And yes, everybody in that organization. I happen to know Mike Borgonzi on his way from being picked up from the airport, driving to the facility, had the radio show on in the car. Now, whether he put it on or somebody put it on for him, either way, yes, it's a small market. There's not that many people talking about this football team. This shit gets around very easily. It's why people keep calling me from your football team pissed off about how hard I keep criticizing them on a regular basis. And by the way, that is their right. This shit gets around. Now, whether or not it impacts their decision-making, even I don't have a big enough ego to think that. But these words on these platforms, and I'm not just talking about me because it is a small market, because there are so many or so few outlets on a regular basis specifically tasked with daily discussion about the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, people throughout the course of that building at every level have no choice but to listen to this shit. That's their only option for sports talk. So with all that to say, let's take a look at the Travis Hunter scenario, because we will talk way more about the quarterbacks in the upcoming months than we will about Travis Hunter. And I think for reasons that we can dive into. But just like I said, we spent all offseason talking about Joe. We probably dedicated 60% of our offseason discussion to a left tackle that you didn't draft last year. So just because we spend most of the time talking about the quarterbacks does not mean that that is the most likely position that you are going to draft. It just means that that's the thing that most of you want to hear about more often than not. So we'll take a quick detour and talk about Travis Hunter here tonight. The question that I want to ask you is this: on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, if you would be so kind, what would your reaction be if the Titans drafted Travis Hunter number 1 overall? We'll in this world, in this hypothetical scenario, we will pretend that the Titans did not trade out, that the Titans got the number 1 overall pick, and with the number 1 overall pick, took a player that we have never seen, or that we have not seen in a generation from the college football ranks. Does not mean that he will be a generational NFL player, but based on the description of generational, there's no other player that I've seen in my lifetime, in my generation, do the things that Travis Hunter did for the past couple of years in college. What would your reaction be? It's your Two Rivers Ford take. As always, it's presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. They make the car buying process fast, easy, and more fun. They also offer you awesome options for financing, competitive pricing, and the quality American-made Ford product that you have come to know and love. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more info. So, what would your reaction be if the Tennessee Titans kept the number 1 overall draft pick and with it brought in Travis Hunter, who has played both wide receiver and corner at the college football level, is probably going to project as a corner at the NFL level at this point in time? A lot of people think that he can do both things. I went through this experience with Adoree Jackson. It's a hell of a lot harder at the pro level than it is in college. And listen, that's not to take anything away from the degree of difficulty that Travis Hunter was able to accomplish while he was at Colorado. But it's crazy. Curtis says, I like Travis, but he'd rather have his QB. That's a completely fine position to have. People are going to, turn these into contentious debates about, no, you're an idiot. Why do you want one of these quarterbacks? They're not as good as the last year's quarterbacks. No, you're an idiot. Why would you want him over Abdul Carter or any of these other things? Why would you want Shador over Abdul Carter? Why would you want Cam Ward over Travis Hunter? Like, these conversations are going to be had. They're probably going to get some level of aggressive. You're allowed to have whatever draft position you want. It's your football team. You can hope and wish and pray for any kind of position, any one player specifically in the draft that your heart desires. I get the notion, because what would you rather have? The quarterback or the position that's most dependent on the quarterback in this, hypothetical world? If you were to draft him as a wide receiver, I don't think you would be drafting him number one overall as a wide receiver. I think you would be drafting him as a defensive back, but that's something that we can talk about coming up next. I think that there will be any number of reactions to that. MB says depends on how they use him. That's valid. Big Hank says he'd rather have Abdul Carter over Travis Hunter. Charles agrees with the notion that he'd rather have a quarterback over Travis Hunter. Eddie Gray says, y'all are tripping and only thinking about whether Levis is going to stink up the place. There are plenty of other options that we can pursue at quarterback, and I happen to agree with Eddie. This particular year, to get you back to the level of competitiveness that you are currently aspiring to, which is, hey, can they try and be in a graphic this year? Can they be in the hunt? Can they push for a wild card spot? I certainly wouldn't pick them to win the division in 2025, even though there weren't any teams. In fact, Bert, I don't know this off the top of my head. You might. Did any NFL team go from worst place in their division to first place this year? I don't believe that happened. And
yeah, not this year.
That's probably the first time in quite some time that that's happened, because it's become a pretty routine thing to see teams flip their fortunes year over year with some rate of regularity, just because of the way that the NFL is designed for the parity. But this was not a very parity-driven football season. You saw all the bad teams just rotting at the bottom of the standings, and all the best teams, clearly and obviously leaps and bounds ahead of the Titans, the Raiders, the Patriots, the Bears, all these like truly awful football teams in 2024. So there's no guarantee that you go from worst to first, or that you can go from worst to first, but it has happened before, and you finished now twice in worst place in the worst division in football. With everything that you see right now, though, Travis Hunter would be a unique selection with the number one overall choice. And you're going to hear from Chris Johnson, as a matter of fact, who was down. You'll hear from Travis Hunter and Chris Johnson. I'll let you hear from Chris Johnson specifically because he was down there scouting at the Senior Bowl. He's trying to get into the personnel game as a former NFL player, and there's good reason to believe that Chris Johnson would be well equipped to identify special qualities in players, because he himself is a player who possessed special qualities. We'll hear from both Travis Hunter and CJ2K here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of Remax Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com. Don't sell without the intel edge you need to succeed from the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators. That's GaryAshton.com. Here is Travis Hunter speaking about his own draft prospects.
Team on the board. You're the first team on the board. I'm happy to be there.
Great answer.
I can't
even if there's other
get
needs,
drafted again.
Say it again.
I said I can't get redrafted again. So, hey, I want to be the first pick on the board.
That's a fact. See, there's a joke I always make about, like, even if a team needs, they desperately need a quarterback, I always say you should get Travis Hunter and then figure the rest out later. So going into that position, let's say you go to a team where y'all need a quarterback. Do you feel like you gonna get in there and really just influence the decision to go find a quarterback in a later round, or do you want to just get there and figure it out who you got?
Hey, as long as I'm on the team, we'll be all right. Hey, we'll figure the rest of it out later.
And he may end up being right. There's no question he's confident. He should be. He averaged 130 snaps a game in college. It's batshit crazy. He played both corner and wide receiver. He did both at a very high level, high enough level to even be in the consideration for the number one overall draft pick. He's got good size for either position that he'd play. I mean, he may not be the prototypical wide receiver size that the NFL is looking for, where you got a bunch of 6'3", 6'4" pterodactyls running around out there, but he's not diminutive either. He's 6'1", 185. He's well built for either position. The question is which skill set best suits him to play at the next level. Primarily, maybe you give him some snaps on offense because he's a special enough player to do so. Maybe you give him some snaps on defense if you drafted him to play offense because he's a special enough player to do so. But on the whole, I think that you would look at Travis Hunter as an interesting proposition here. What would my reaction be if the Titans took Travis Hunter without trading back and took him with the number one overall pick? I would be a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie to you. Even though I have thoroughly enjoyed Travis Hunter as a college football player, there are too many other places. One, it would indicate that they didn't trade out. and that they felt that Travis Hunter was truly not just a generational college football player, but a generational future NFL football player. And maybe they think that. We have no idea. We will not know until we see what happens with this number 1 overall draft pick, trade or otherwise. I would be a little disappointed because his best position in the NFL is corner, which we'll talk about coming up next. And it would speak to the failures of the work that they did to address the secondary last year. They gave Chido Awuzie a 3-year contract with legitimate guaranteed money. They gave L'Jarius Sneed a 4-year contract and traded a 3rd-round pick for him and gave Sneed legitimate guaranteed money. They drafted Jarvis Brownlee in the 5th round, and he ended up playing a hell of a lot more snaps than they probably ever intended for him to play. And they have Roger McCreary under contract heading into next year. They didn't have a good secondary because their secondary was hurt. And it would probably mean that one of these corners that they paid in the last cycle is probably on their way out in the very near future, because you would not spend the number 1 overall draft pick at corner to not play him if you indeed plan to play him at corner. So I would be a little disappointed, even though I would be fascinated by what they would try to do with him. And I think that on the whole, that's a fair reaction to have. Maybe he is right. Maybe Travis Hunter is correct, that as long as I'm on the team, we'll figure it out. But I saw this team struggle to figure much of anything out last year. And yeah, they've made a year of experience, I think, will benefit everybody. There's certainly valuable lessons to be learned in losing. God knows they did enough losing. So hopefully they learned enough lessons in 2024. But I wouldn't want a huge project at the number 1 overall pick to go to a coaching staff who I didn't think was very good at problem solving last year. Now, maybe they were never going to be able to figure out the problem last year, because the problem was primarily fueled by the fact that Will Levis and the decisions that he made were unthinkable in a lot of circumstances. The nuclear moments were so bad that whatever problem solving you might do would be immediately undermined by a quarterback who was responsible for 18 total turnovers last year. Turned the ball over at a rate that we haven't seen since Jameis Winston threw 30-plus interceptions in a season. I think in particular, though, it's more about me being uncertain about the coaching staff's ability than it is about Travis Hunter. I believe that Travis Hunter could be an immediate impact player for an organization that drafts him, but I want to see him go to a place that I think would best equip him for success. I don't know that place is Tennessee, no matter what he thinks about his level of confidence. Now, CJ2K is somebody worth listening to on this, because not only was he down scouting at the Senior Bowl this weekend, but he's obviously got familiarity with traits that few other players could possibly have. CJ is one of the most impressive players to come out of the draft process. He was an incredible college football player. He was a spectacular professional athlete, even though he didn't play for the best teams throughout the course of his career. His analysis here is worth at least paying attention to. And we'll get to that here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by Bart Durham Injury Law. You deserve to be paid, and BartDurham.com will help you do so. Their law firm has been in business for over 75 years. Their attorneys, whether it be Blair Durham or the rest of their team, will get you the results that you deserve. They have multiple areas of automobile accident practice as well as personal injury law that they can help you with, and they offer you free consultations online today at BartDurham.com, because, of course, you deserve to be paid. BartDurham.com. All of the analysis that is going to be thrown out there, I think it's worth having different perspectives on this, because a lot of people are going to regurgitate the same stuff, but few people have the perspective that Chris Johnson does. And this is something that Chris Johnson had to say after being asked about draft prospects, about the scouting prospects, and specifically about Travis Hunter.
Travis, and we go in and see what Will Levis can do for us. Bring Travis on, you get you a receiver, or you get you a DB. I would love him to go in the league and pay DB and come in on certain special packages on offense to help the team out. But I think we would be absolute fools if we pass up on Travis.
So Chris Johnson saying that the Titans would be absolute fools to pass up on Travis Hunter with the ability to take him number 1 overall. Now, he's describing a world where the Titans might be willing to give Will Levis an additional chance. I think that's less likely. I think that the coaching staff, at the very least, now maybe they get another coaching staff and Levis is still under contract for 2 more seasons, because there's nothing that guarantees that Brian Callahan is going to be here beyond this year. There's nothing that guarantees that Brian Callahan is going to finish this season, because they've built this organization specifically to be focused around the front office and to be less coach-centric than it's ever been. So Levis here in this situation is the more unlikely proposition. And I get what he's saying about thinking that anybody would be fooled to pass over Travis Hunter. But the defensive back aspect of it is something that, specifically for this team and this team's needs, I would struggle with the opportunity cost. I had a hard time with the Tavondre Sweat opportunity cost. Now, I don't think Sweat's a bad player. I think that Braden Fisk ended up being a more impactful player. I mean, not just because he had a higher sack total, even though Braden Fisk had, 11 sacks for the Los Angeles Rams. And part of that is because they paired him with Jared Verse, and they've got some fun edge rushing talent like Byron Young, the former Tennessee Vol, in Los Angeles as well. But I really had a hard time with the Titans not trading out of 38 overall, because the Rams tried to do the same deal with Tennessee that they ended up doing with Carolina when they moved up to the 39th overall pick and there took Braden Fisk. So it's not just about, did you get a good player? Because I think Tavondre Sweat has, at least for the time being, done a great job disputing any of the negative narratives that were out there. I thought he had great work ethic. I thought his conditioning was fine. His weight did not become an issue. His attitude did not become an issue. But Braden Fisk was a more impactful player last year. And that is something that you have to think about when you're talking about opportunity costs. Will you ever know the answer? What would the Titans have been better if they drafted Braden Fisk over Tavondre Sweat? No, but would the Titans have more draft capital at their disposal and an impactful player if they traded with the Rams for that particular pick and took Braden Fisk instead of doing the trade? Yeah, those are things that you're going to have to think about at this point in time. So we'll talk next about where Travis Hunter's best spot is in the comment section. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch is where you can answer the question, where would you most like to see Travis Hunter play at this point in time? While you do that, I will remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the wonderful people at Zen Sports. The big game is right around the corner, and they have another great offer for you. The Thursday NFL Big Game Parlay Profit Boost. You can make a 2+ leg parlay that includes 1 leg on any game on Thursday, today, in fact, and 1 leg on any NFL big game bet. You can earn a 25% profit boost up to a total of $250 if you win. For promo rules and restrictions, please visit the Zen Sports app. Promo code ATOZTN. Get you in. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions do apply. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet at Zen Sports. So, best position for Travis Hunter at this point in time. Trigger says for us, it's wide receiver. Any other team, defensive back. I'm sure. Let's see, more comments there to the effect of Travis Hunter's fit in the league. I see a lot of commentary for wide receiver. Big Hank says we've got too many DBs anyway. So he would say wide receiver. Mac J says both. William Jones says, in all honesty, I know the Titans will F up this draft. So not a lot of confidence in this team at this point in time. I think that a lot of people are going to look at him as a wide receiver. Supreme Nick says wide receiver, but I think his best position in the NFL, based on what he's shown in college, is in fact defensive back. I think that when you look at Travis Hunter, the games that he played 9 games in 2023 as a DB. He played 13 games in 2024 as a DB. He had 776 defensive snaps alone this season, and he was somebody who you could really rely upon. He got 4 interceptions. He had 1 defensive touchdown. He was targeted 41 times and only allowed 23 receptions for 221 yards. Again, these numbers according to Pro Football Focus at this point in time. He was lined up 115 times in the slot. He was lined up 579 times at outside corner. He played deep safety twice, and he was in the box for 80 total snaps based on the alignment. He forced incompletions 8 times. He did drop an interception. He did have 11 coverage stops, 6 missed tackles, which is not inconsequential. And the average depth of the targets where quarterbacks tried to test him was 7.9 yards, which was ranked out of a number of different corners who played at least 350 plus snaps this season. He grades out better as a coverage player than he does as a receiver. Now, is he perfect? No. He's much better in zone than he is in man, though he is a good enough athlete to play in man coverage. And I think that when you see, again, you're counting on his ability to learn and continue to elevate as one of the most special athletes we've ever seen. Where's our need for him, says Mac J? Well, I think you could use him at either position, but I think that if you were drafting him number 1 overall, it would be to play defensive back, and it would be to play corner at this point in time. I think that is your best possible position for him, and I think that is the best possible position for him at basically if everything was equal, just in the league. But you have needs all over the place. Yes, you need wide receiver help, but I think you need defensive back help. Not as much, but close to as much as you need wide receiver help. And to me, Travis Hunter for the Titans and just generally in the league makes the most sense as a defensive back. Chill Mode says we don't need him. He is a luxury pick for the Titans. It depends on what your organization's thought process is. If you're drafting based on need, okay, fine. If you're drafting based on best player available, there's a very compelling argument to be made that Travis Hunter will be the best player available on the board, even when you're picking at number 1 overall. So, yeah, you can look at it as a luxury, or you can look at it as just adding talented football players to a football team that does not have talent at this point in time. All right, weekend bounce back. Who needs to bounce back most in sports this week? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. In the comment section, let me know who you think needs to bounce back, and we'll talk about that at length together right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Now, I'm not going to go to my normal Friday TrueMath session because I have a vet appointment tomorrow at 7:30, but I always enjoy my visits to TrueMath Fitness. I always enjoy my personal training sessions at TrueMath Fitness. You don't have to take personal training sessions if that's not your vibe. You can work out with their group fitness classes. You can work out in their open gym at your own speed. You can work out however you want to work out with the best team and best facility in downtown Nashville. That's TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch, where your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. TrueMathFitness.com for more information. All right, who needs to bounce back most in sports? Zach Goodman says the Predators. Yeah, they look like they might have had something going there for a minute. They had 5 straight wins, and now they've dropped back-to-back. They lost last night 3-1 to the Canucks. The issue continues to be their goaltending. One of their biggest issues. Their offense has been a struggle. Their offense has evaporated basically for the entire season. Besides that 5-game run where they had one of the better offenses in hockey during that 5-game stretch, they have been one of the worst offenses in the sport on aggregate this year. So not only is UC Saros not performing up to the value of his 8-year contract that you gave him, and he gets like a $2.5 million raise next year. You've got 2 seasons now. We're not to the trade deadline yet, so we're not halfway through the NHL season, but you've got a season and a half, basically, of sample size. If UC Saros not playing very well, and you spent a lot of money in the offseason to put together an offense, and your offense sucks. So this team it's crazy that the Titans and the Preds basically went into their respective off seasons last year with the same strategy to acquire high-priced veteran players to make them, one, in the case of the Predators, they were trying to compete for a Stanley Cup this year. In the case of the Tennessee Titans, they were trying to get back to postseason contention. Both of them have failed miserably. And the Predators are arguably the bigger disappointment because both of them are going to be vying for the number 1 overall draft. I mean, the Titans already have it. They're the worst team in football. The Preds, they're going to be vying for the number 1 overall draft pick in hockey. And it's crazy that we're dealing with both teams at the same time. Level of hideous. All that to say, looking at the bounce back situation, I do think that the Preds could certainly use one at this point in time. Nick says Duval, talking about probably their cringy coach, Liam Cohen, who had the viral moment at the press conference this week. Miro agrees. MB agrees. Bounce back to Jags. Listen, you better hope that Liam Cohen doesn't figure it out with Trevor Lawrence the way that he did with Baker Mayfield. Hell, Liam Cohen has the best resume with Will Levis on it, which is crazy. So if Liam Cohen can figure out how to make Will Levis a high-functioning college football quarterback, I don't know. He might turn Trevor Lawrence into a problem for you, even though he's cringy at press conferences. That's what it is. Leo says Bert's stomach was growling. He clearly needs a Snickers. He's getting hangry back there.
It was for the press.
Yeah, we know, idiot. No, Bert. What was it for? Anyway, who needs a bounce back most this week? Well, we played for you yesterday the C.J. Stroud, Bobby Slowick, Lance Zierlein story, and I thought that was an interesting one. But I would give the bounce back to the Oregon offensive tackle. Forgive me, Bert. What's his first name? His last name is Connerly. Josh Connerly, the Oregon tackle. He got absolutely destroyed by the Marshall defensive end, Mike Green, in Senior Bowl one-on-ones this week. It is one of the most viral clips to result out of the Senior Bowl this week. It was an absolute demolition. Now, I know everybody was dogging on Josh Connerly for the highlight instead of praising Mike Green for just jumping into his chest and forcing him to fall backwards in those one-on-one drills. So Connerly needs the bounce back, certainly. And he's, I liked him as a pro player. I think, for a team like Bert's Ravens, potentially, if Ronnie Stanley doesn't get a deal done, Josh Connerly might make a lot of sense. The Oregon left tackle. You got offensive line options in this draft class, which is what makes the Titans' number 1 overall pick proposition that much more interesting. But yeah, if you've seen that highlight making the rounds this week, you know that man needs a bounce back pretty desperately. All right, gonna do it. Oh, also Jerry Jones, smiles and glory holes. I know he's talking about oil, hitting oil, striking oil. When you find the pocket of earth where the oil exists and the oil springs up from the ground, that's technically what Jerry is talking about, the glory hole, as opposed to something that you might find in a truck stop, gas station. But even still, Jerry with the cringy comments about smiles and glory holes probably also needs a bounce back.
There's a very low percentage of this that is smiles and glory holes. Very low percentage.
See you guys tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
Go home! Go home! Go home!